Spider-Man is the most recognizable of the Marvel superheroes. Sure, the onslaught of Marvel movies have helped turn Iron Man and Tony Stark into memorable names, but Peter Parker has a certain allure that can't be replicated. In an interview with Time magazine, Stan Lee said that his publisher was against the hero, since superheroes, quote, can't have personal problems, end quote. But that's exactly what makes him resonate with so many people. He's a street-level, working-class hero, and developer Insomniac Games understands that.
Respond. Mobilize that touchdown.
Marvel's Spider-Man opens with a seasoned Spider-Man. He's 23 years old and has been practicing his heroics for about 8 years. After taking down Wilson Fisk, better known as the Kingpin, Parker hopes that crime will start to calm down, and for a brief moment, it does. Aside from the occasional mugging or carjacking, things seem calm. And that's when the Demons, a new crew of highly trained and superpowered thugs, come onto the scene, led by supervillain Mr. Negative.
Came in from Tribeca.
As Parker tries to take down this new crime lord, he reconnects with Mary Jane Watson and meets a new friend in Miles Morales. What Insomniac does so well is that it brings the worlds of Spider-Man and Peter Parker together. The villains are close to him, he knows them, and Parker sees the effects of one life spill over into the other. In this case, Peter watches Martin Lee, the alter ego of Mr. Negative, as he goes from caring philanthropist to chaotic gang leader. The further into the game players get, the more that these two worlds overlap, before Peter is forced to face those who he admires and those he thinks he can trust. Parker is brought to life thanks to the incredible voice acting of Yuri Lowenthal. He's snarky but never grating, and he brings a vulnerability that makes Peter even more relatable. Insomniac has a very nuanced understanding of Spider-Man, but it's clear that it cares more about Peter Parker. Spider-Man is here for the flash and pizzazz, but even while he's beating up Electro, he's still that 20-something trying to pay his rent. Spider-Man is the show, but Peter Parker is the character. Even the best story is overshadowed by sloppy game design, but Insomniac knows this and made a game that plays like a dream. The key word for Marvel's Spider-Man is seamless. From combat to swinging to story to side missions, there's very little that keeps players from controlling the action. Zipping around New York City has this constant feeling of forward momentum. Players can swing, wall run, jump, and dive without memorizing overwrought button combos. It's an elegantly simple system that allows even the most casual players to feel adept at traversing the vast map that is New York City. Combat is a surprising challenge. Rather than just force one's way through a group of thugs, constant movement is the key to victory. Since Spider-Man isn't the strongest hero, he relies on his speed and agility, something that provided a considerable learning curve. Having a dodge button instead of a counter added maneuverability to the experience, which forced me to rethink how I approach the game's tougher enemies. One thing that truly changes the combat is verticality. Players can launch enemies up in the air to unleash a beatdown, and even swing from enemy to enemy during a fight. It's these little touches that make the regular combat so rewarding. Boss fights, however, are another story. Fighting the Sinister Six is an exciting prospect. Rhino, Vulture, Scorpion, Electro, Shocker, and Mr. Negative are intimidating foes, but only one of these fights really provided much of a challenge. More often than not, they're fought in pairs, and as a result, the strategy to take them down is so simple that the fights feel tacked on. It's disappointing that a game with so much polish in regular combat lacks inspiration in its too few boss fights. One particular fight sticks out. The Scorpion and Rhino fight gives players a minimal indication of progress, to the point where I wasn't even sure if I was doing any damage at all. Thankfully, there's so much to do in Marvel's Spider-Man that these lackluster fights are easy to forgive. Stopping small crimes like robberies and kidnappings not only provide a distraction from the main story, but it makes the city feel alive. As much as I adore the Arkham games, Rocksteady struggles to make Gotham City feel like an actual place. New York, on the other hand, feels like a living entity that changes as the game progresses. In addition, players can explore other aspects of Peter Parker's personality. Players can photograph landmarks around the city, nodding at Peter's photography skills, and players can prevent catastrophes at research stations, exploring Parker's scientific aspirations. While these aspects aren't necessary to complete the game, they add more to do, and more importantly, build the world of Marvel's Spider-Man beyond heroics. It would be a mistake not to mention the game's beautiful graphics. The lighting effects are so realistic that I couldn't help but stop swinging every so often just to admire the sunsets. Then, at night, the city changes. Times Square is bright and beautiful, and the varied lights from buildings almost turn New York City into a new place. Every detail feels meticulously crafted. Character models have wrinkles and expressions that show such a varied range of emotion that every scene felt like more than just words being said. In addition, this is the only game where I've ever actually used a photo mode. I've taken an obnoxious number of pictures, and I'm not the only one. With photo mode, challenging combat, satisfying traversal, and an engaging story, this game is a true phenomenon, and for good reason. Insomniac Games has crafted something that's more than just a game. It's a bona fide experience that players will want to go back to countless times. It's a game that will go on to be remembered as a standout of its generation and its genre.